BookTube, it's Missy, and today I'm here to give you guys a wrap-up of all of the books that I have read since the month of May. And I put a poll up there on my channel a few days ago and asked if you guys wanted to see a mukbang. So I went through the trouble. I've done a mukbang on my channel before. It was like a update video of like what's going on in my life, and then we ate some food. But I actually did the works today. I have a very small stomach. I can't eat that much, so all of these leftovers are gonna go to my teenage son. He's waiting outside on the patio, you know, playing video games and talking to his friends and stuff, but he can't wait to get into the food that I bought. And it took so long for me to figure out how to set up the camera, get all the books without being in shot, have the food, and I can't even show you the food while I'm eating it because I don't have a table. You can see the pillows. I'm sitting on my bed, and I bought myself a little TV tray stand thing so I could have my food on it and then eventually use it for other things. So, yeah, let's get started. How have you guys been doing? This is all of the books that I've read so far. I'm going to start with the month of May, and we're just going to go from there. The first book that I read in the month of May is Freckle Juice by Judy Blume. This little book I read, I think, when I was in the 3rd grade, and I loved it so much that it stuck with me. And so when I was teaching last semester, still online, the main teacher of the classroom asked me if I had a book that I really enjoyed from when I was little and if I'd be willing to read it to the class, and I said absolutely. So yeah, Freckle Juice by Judy Blume. I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to pick up my first dish here, and this is, okay, yeah. So I went to a place that's near my house. It's like 10 minutes away. It's just down the hill. I got all like vegetarian stuff. I'm not a huge meat eater in general, although I do know that you need protein in your life. But I tend not to eat a whole lot of meat. Personal preference. I have nothing against meat. I know that red meat isn't good for me. It has, I have high cholesterol on both sides of my family, so I stopped eating red meat about, like 10 years ago. I think when I turned 30, I realized that red meat was not in the cards for me. And so I just stopped eating it cold turkey, and it was totally fine. I'm not the kind of person that has like addictions, or if you wanted to say, I don't know, some people might get offended with addiction because they use addiction for like drugs and alcohol, but you can be addicted to literally anything. So I had no problems in stopping the eating of the meat, and I mainly stick to chicken and turkey and fish. Yeah, I do eat eggs occasionally. I don't really like eggs that much either. But anyways, I'm going to continue talking about Freckle Juice. But I did want to share with you guys that this is a buffalo cauliflower. It's buffalo cauliflower. I was really worried that all of the food would be super cold because it took me so long to set this up. I was like, oh, I'm going to be so good. I'm going to go get all the food at like 11-ish, 11:30-ish. That way I can start filming at 12. That'll give me like a couple hours to edit and upload the video, so it's up by yeah, it didn't pan out that way because my memory card was full and I didn't know, which was a bummer because now my food is cold. But being a mom, cold food is fine. And these are delicious. They're called vegetarian. What are they? I think they're called like vegetarian wings, vegetarian buffalo wings, but it's buffalo cauliflower. I love cauliflower. So this is a good little snackaroo as we get started. Okay, so this book is about a little boy named Andrew, and he is in the 3rd grade. I'll show you a little picture about him. He's in the 3rd grade, and he sits behind this guy named Nicky, and Nicky has freckles all over his face, all over his neck. Andrew is obsessed with Nicky's freckles. He thinks that it's the coolest thing in the whole world. And for someone, me personally, I don't have that many freckles on my face, but I too can relate to Andrew seeing girls and boys at school growing up with glasses, freckles, braces, curly hair, things that I did not have. I mean, this is just from braiding my hair a couple days ago. So yeah, I've always wanted what I didn't have, right? Andrew is in that category. He really wants these freckles. He doesn't know how to get them. And there's this really mean girl in class. Isn't there always a really mean girl in class? I mean, there's always really mean boys too, but there's always one kid that is just so obnoxious and always trying to hurt your feelings. And this girl goes, "Psst, hey, Andrew, I have the recipe to get you freckles." And being an 8-year-old, you know, Andrew's like, "Oh my gosh, I totally want this recipe." And she goes, "Well, it's going to cost you 50 cents. And 50 cents is a lot of money for a 3rd grader, especially, let me tell you when this was published. It was first published in 1971. So 50 cents was probably a ton of money, like weeks of allowance, like really collecting the money and being able to pay this girl. And Andrew goes home and he does the recipe. It doesn't turn out the way he wants. And it's really funny. It's so cute. It's only 57 pages, but again, like it's little kid pages. So there's like 30 words on a page. I'm exaggerating. There's a little bit more than that. But it's mostly pictures. I really enjoyed it. I haven't read any other books by Judy Blume besides the book Forever, which I got in middle school. So let me know down below if you have any other Judy Blume books that you remember reading when you were little, and let me know if I should pick it up and like add it to my kids' collection, because this is really cute. All right, let's get back to the eating. I just watched ContraPoints' video Envy, and I love ContraPoints. She's so beautiful. But her, if you don't know who she is, definitely look her up on Google. Definitely look her up on YouTube. She her production of her videos are just chef's kiss. I don't know how she does it. I mean, obviously she's got a team to help her out, and she's got all the lighting and all the costumes, and she's just amazing. And I don't watch all of her videos. Some I can't really relate to, but I do really enjoy her style of like, it's not commentary, it's like essays. I really enjoy essay videos of someone going on and just talking like a speech, but more no purpose of like you know, sharing information in that text, but like to teach somebody subjects. Yeah, so I really, really like her. And she was doing Envy, and I watched that video twice. It's like 2 hours long. I did watch it twice, and in the middle of her essay on envy and where it comes from and how it's different from jealousy and resentment, and it's such a good video. She was eating sushi, so she had a part in her video where she was eating, and I was like, you know, I've never thought about reviewing books and eating at the same time. I think that would be kind of fun. So I figured, let's give it a try. See how I like it, see how long it takes to edit the videos, see how well I can keep my books from getting dirty, and now I can continue on. Alright, so the next book that I read in the month of May was Voices, The Final Hours of Joan of Arc by David Elliott. Now, I had purchased this last year when it first came out. I did read Bull by David Elliott a few years ago when it first came out, and it is a retelling of the Minotaur, the Greek mythology of the Minotaur, but it's in poetry form. And I typically hate poetry if it's not in the old-fashioned stanzas where you have a rhyming scheme of like ABAB or AABB, or I haven't had a poetry class in a very long time. I took a poetry workshop in college probably around like 2004, maybe 2003, something like that. Really, really loved it. But I don't like reading poetry in like a story form. Like, I never picked up Ellen Hopkins. I never thought that that would be my kind of style. So when I picked up Bull, not this one, but the other one he wrote. Do I even have it? Here. I do have it. When I picked up Bull a few years back, I was shocked at how awesome it was and how it was just so fun to read. And I really got the sense of the mythology of the Minotaur, where the, you know, like how the story came to be, and so forth. I really liked the fact that like Poseidon in this book was like a rap. It almost seemed like he was a rapper. Like, it was just so like modern, yet had the old rhyming scheme that I enjoy. Does that make sense? So when I saw that he had written another book, I definitely wanted to pick it up. And I've liked the story of Joan of Arc. My favorite actress, it may not be everyone's favorite actress, but is Mila Jovovich. I've been obsessed with her since I was in middle school, and I first saw her in Return of the Blue Lagoon. I thought she was gorgeous, and ever since then I've been obsessed. I've seen her in Dazed and Confused. I loved her in Fifth Element. I've seen her in Ultraviolet. I've seen her in the zombie movies. What's it called? You guys know what I'm talking about. So I also saw her when she played Joan of Arc, and I really liked the movie, and so I've been kind of like really interested in reading the story as well. So when this came out, I was super stoked. And I finally got to read it in May. That was a long story to talk about the book. But what David does with his writing is just, it's so creative, you know? Like, he comes up with this scheme, like this one shows you a map, so you know, you can follow along. This is actually the the trial of Joan of Arc, not her story itself. Like, you get a lot of her story in the movie, or if you read, what's wrong with my necklace? If you read like the original story of Joan of Arc, this is the trial where she is committed as a witch, And then it talks about the nullification where then she turns into a saint. So now she's a saint. But there is a prologue on here, kind of like the prologue in Romeo and Juliet. Kind of gives you like what's going on. But then we have these here. So this right here is the very first page that we see. And I'm just going to read it to you. I figured if we're going to sit back and have a mukbang and talk about books, we might as well go through the entire journey. You guys are my friends, and if we were sitting down at a table right now and eating, typically when I go out with my friends and we go eating, it's like a 2-hour process. We're talking story, the waiter and waitress is coming over asking us if we're ready yet. It's been 30 minutes, we're still chatting. 45 minutes, sometimes even an hour. We're like, sorry, keep the drinks coming, we'll order the food in a little bit. So, I recall it as if it were yesterday. She was so lovely and young. In her hand I darted and flickered away, an ardent lover's adventuring tongue. I had never known such yearning, exciting and risky and cruel. As we walked to the church I was burning. She was my darling, my future, my fuel. I wanted to set her afire right then, but she was so pure, so chaste. Her innocence only increased my desire. Still, I know the dangers of haste. So I watched and I studied and waited, and I saw that her young blood ran hot. She had no idea we were fated. I could name what she craved. She could not. Then in her eye I caught my reflection. In her eye I saw myself shine, and I saw the heat rise on her virgin's complexion. That's when I knew she was mine. The reason why I love this beginning is because it's so powerful. Like, Joan of Arc died by burning at the stake as a witch. And so the candle is what lit the fire for the burning to begin. And all Joan had to do was confess that she made it all up, that she was in cahoots with the devil, that God didn't send her on this mission to save, it wasn't France. Oh my gosh. I think it was, maybe it was France. Regardless, I just loved the way that the objects, the inanimate objects of this book have their own voice. They, like the sword and the dress and the clothes that she's wearing, and it all has its own voice, and it all has its own perspective of Joan of Arc and the story that is going along. And I really, David is such an amazing writer, and it freaks me out because before he wrote Bull, I'll just hold it up again. Before he wrote this book, he was writing children's books. Now, I did post it on Instagram that I was going to do a spotlight of David's works, and I don't know if I'll be able to make my own video on it because I haven't finished reading all of his stuff yet. So I'm going to touch on the rest of the stuff that I've read by him in May, but I would like to go back later on and hopefully do like a real author spotlight on him. This was definitely a 5-star read for me. I will read anything that David Elliott writes, and I was obsessed. So if I don't have a star rating during this video in the doodad, when you guys are eating food, whether it be like with a group of friends or just at dinner, do you guys eat a bite full of like each thing, or do you eat one whole thing first and then make your way around like the plate? Like, I feel like these buffalo cauliflowers are so good. I could just eat this and that's it, but that would be kind of boring to watch. And also, I want to get to the other stuff as well. So, I didn't talk about the dipping sauce. It's just barbecue. I'm going to set this aside just because I want my son to taste it too. I think they'll really like it. What's in this one? Oh. I got myself a toast. I'm just going to eat one of these. I'm not too keen on eating a bunch of bread, so I figured this would be good for my kids. It did come with like a marinara dipping sauce, but this is their garlic bread. Definitely would have tasted better if it was hot. There's something about when bread is like crispy and like the butter is just, it's just barely melted on it. It's just so much more like delicious. But then when you eat it when it's cold, it's like the butter has settled like in the middle of the bread, and so it's just soggy and like a greasy feeling. It's not bad. Garlic bread is garlic bread. I don't think you can do good or bad on garlic bread. I'm not even gonna finish that piece because I don't want to get full on bread. I figured, if anything, I can have it with my dinner tonight because I'm planning on having like tomato soup or something. That'll taste good. All right, what's in the next container? Ooh. All right, so in this container, we have cheesy tater tots. Cheesy tater tots. I've been to this restaurant before with my friends, and I've gotten the spicy tater tots, which is a tater tot with sriracha and like a cheese sauce. And I've also had their like potato tots, which is like the sour cream and the cheese and like the chives and the bacon bits and everything on it. Okay. Let's move on to the next book. All right. The next book I read immediately after Joan of Arc was The Seventh Raven. Now, The Seventh Raven came out, I believe, yeah, this year. This came out earlier this year, and I knew I wanted this one because I had purchased this one last year, and I wanted this one because I bought Bull. So once I read this one, and it gave me the courage to buy this one, because I was like, I knew I liked Bull. Sometimes you have an author where like they write one book and then you buy another book by them and then you read it and it's not like the same. Not necessarily like the same subject, but they're just, the voice isn't there anymore. What you loved and what sparked your interest the first time around was just lacking in the second one. So because this one was the sequel to Bull, not necessarily like in order of like what the stories are, but like his second retelling in poetry, and I loved it, I knew I had to pick up this one. So this one is a little bit different. It's still a retelling. The first retelling was Greek mythology. The second retelling was like an actual person that we have in history, and then this retelling is a German fable. Now, I've read about stories like this, The Seventh Raven, where there is a witch and she puts a curse on these children and then they turn into birds. This one's ravens, but I've heard of swans, and then there's another one like sparrows or something. Not, I wanted to say turkeys. Turkeys is absolutely not correct. So, I had heard of the story, but I hadn't read the original before. And so when I went into this, I went into it kind of blind. I didn't really know what was going on. And again, we have several points of view in this book. We have the mom, the dad, and then we have, there's 7 brothers that are named Jack. The 8th brother, for some reason, is special, and his name is Robin. And what the parents really want after having 8 boys is a girl. But when they finally get their miracle baby, she's really sick, and they think that she might die. And the father goes, go and run to the river and get water for your sister. We need to, she had a fever and something. We need the water for some reason. And the boys are bickering about who's going to get the water, okay? And the youngest, Robin, decides to go. But when he gets to the river, he accidentally drops the bucket, and the bucket goes away. And the father's so upset because his daughter, his miracle baby, the one that he's been craving, he wants a girl. She's gonna die because her brothers are so incompetent. And so he curses them. And he goes, I wish you guys would just fly away. And when he says that, the boys all turn into ravens and they fly away. But the daughter ends up recovering and, you know, growing up and everything. So I really liked the story about how when the daughter grows up and she hears about her brothers and what happened to them, and then she meets this woman on the road, and the woman tells her, I know how to save your brothers. And so all the sister wants to do is go and find her brothers and return them into humans. But Robin doesn't want to. This is all he's ever wanted, was to fly and to be his own person and to not have to deal with his brothers and what their ideas are. He wants his own ideas. And so, yeah. So I'm just going to read a little bit from Robin's perspective. It says, they called me Robin. How did they know from the very start that the murmuring beat of my infant heart would not conform to the rhythms of my brothers? One no different from the other, and insensible to the smart. Sting of thorns on the rocky ground, each of us, it seems, has his part. To play there's earthbound like our fathers, their feet planted in the dirt. But I love the sky, its incandescence, its infinity, its colors. And they called me Robin. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed the story as well. If I had to say which ones were my favorite out of the 3, it would definitely be Bull, then Voices, then this one. I am absolutely looking forward to more of David Elliott's writing. I hope he continues with these like shorter poetry retellings. I just find them fascinating. They're easy to consume in a sitting. I mean, I read all of these were like in a few hours. They're relatable. The poems aren't too wordy, but they're so fantastic. And I just want a whole shelf of his retellings and his poetry. I just truly, truly enjoyed them. All right, let's have a few more bites of tater tots. What was your favorite side in not high school? I don't know why I said that. What was your favorite side dish in school? Like when you guys got school lunch? Did you guys have school lunch? Growing up in Hawaii, we always had school lunch. And here in California, at least in elementary school, the children still have a cafeteria where they go with their classes, they pick out their lunches. You get like choices of what you want to eat, and there's like a veggie bar or like a salad bar that the kids can get fruit and vegetables and all that stuff. But my favorite thing was always the tater tots at our school lunches. And we would usually have that with something that had like cheese on top. But it would be always that like frozen, bagged, shredded cheese. So they didn't stick together or anything. And so I would open up my tater tots, you know. I would break them in half, and then I would stuff the middles with the cheese. And then eat them. Yeah. So middle school cafeterias in Hawaii was the same. You still got to go inside. You still got to pick what you wanted for lunch. Except for it was a little bit different because it was like an assembly line. And in middle school, every homeroom class had to work in the cafeteria. So there was like 2 or 3 main cafeteria people, like the adults that worked back there and prepared all of the food. And then once a week, a homeroom would have to work in the cafeteria. So they would get to eat lunch first, and then we would put on our gloves and our hats and our our like jackets, so that way we wouldn't contaminate any of the food. And then we would stand in line and we would scoop each thing. Like someone would be the mashed potato person, someone would be the tater tot person, some would be, the roll person, whatever it was. And then the kids would so if you were working in the cafeteria, you had your own chores. And if you worked outside in the not in the kitchen, but outside with all the tables, then you would be the ones wiping down the tables after the kids were done eating and sweeping up the auditorium or the cafeteria. It was pretty much the same thing. We ate where the stage was for all of our assemblies and everything. And so we got to learn how to work as a group every year. So it was like that from 6th grade all the way to 8th grade. You had to work in the cafeteria, and then once you were done with your shift, right? Once all the kids were done eating, then you would get like a popsicle. And it was always these triangle popsicles where you had to rip the bottoms off and then push the frozen juice up through the top. It was crazy. I loved that, because then when we got into high school, again, in high school in Hawaii, they have a cafeteria where you can go inside, sit with your friends, and actually have a hot meal. You can have, sometimes they'll have baked chicken, sometimes they'll have like turkey and gravy and mashed potatoes and corn or whatever. Or if you were those kinds of kids that just wanted to get like a fast food version, they would always have like chicken patty sandwiches and tater tots. Okay, the next book that I read, don't fall. The next book that I read in May is Nightmare, and this is by Chad Nicholas, I think is how you say it. Chad sent this to me a while back. I want to say fall of last year, maybe October. And I felt terrible because it took so long to finally pick this book up. But I've been meaning to read it for months now. And the cover's amazing. We have, this is probably a crow, but I'm going to say it's a raven because I love ravens so much. And on the back side, we have a scarecrow. Now, this book reminds me of The Dark Half. And in not the way that The Dark Half is. If you have read The Dark Half by Stephen King, or you've watched the movie, both versions, you know, are pretty much the same. We have this writer, and he writes thriller books. And in order to be creative and come up with these like gruesome tidbits to add to his stories, he has to like touch the dark side of himself. But also, he's always had a feeling like he wasn't like alone. And throughout the book, we find that he actually has like a twin, like a dark twin. But it's more of a psychological thing until it's manifested. Now, in this book, we have a man who we don't find out for a while, but there was this accident that happens. And the man, our main character, he goes to therapy to discuss like his demons, right? The things that have happened to him in the past. And then there's a portion where we learn that his daughter, his oldest daughter, also had an incident. And as a reader, at the beginning, you're like, what is going on? Why is our main character, the dad, like, what? It feels like you're like stuck in the middle of a story, you know? So he's talking to his daughter. His daughter's got like these locks on her window, or on her door, and she's got bars on her windows. And but she's getting better, and we don't know why she is like this. And then there's this animosity between the husband and the wife. You can see that they're not really lovey-dovey, that there's some kind of tension there. And as a reader, we don't know what's going on. Everything is like a mystery, which I find so fascinating. You don't get a lot of books like that, where everything is so slow-paced, but also not. It seems like it's going by quickly. This was such a fast read. But at the same time, you're like, what is going on? Why aren't you telling me more information? And I loved that, because sometimes you get front-loaded with so much information that it takes the fun and the mystery out of the book. And then you're like, I already know what's going to happen. So when I reached the end of this story, I was shocked. I was shocked. Because the beginning, I'm just going to read you the beginning of the story. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read you the first line, and this is the prologue, okay? It says, "It was hard to breathe inside the grave." Okay, I'll read you one more sentence. "The cold touch of the soil surrounded him like a casket, numbing his body as he lay there motionless." I tell you what, Chad is a, this is, I don't think his picture's in here. No. I haven't like spoken to him like personally. Like, we've talked a little bit on email, and I've DM'd him on Instagram. I don't know his story. I don't know how he came out to be a writer. Like, it's definitely indie. He must be publishing these books by himself. Who publishes this? Yeah, it says there's the cover art and the editing, but there's no publisher. So is he publishing this himself? Because it's genius. And his picture, I haven't like delved into like how old this person is, but his picture makes me think he's super young, and he just does such a good job. This book was so good. I want to say that I gave it like a 4.5 stars. I just absolutely loved it. It was creepy and twisted and weird and like mysterious and fun, and yeah, that's all I want to say, because I don't want to like give too much away, because it is so mysterious at the beginning and you question what's happening, that if I say anything else, it might cause you guys to like jump the gun and think what is going to happen in the story, and I mean, you may not pick it up because of that. So definitely pick up this book. I actually have The Shade, which is the second book that Chad has written. It's in my August haul, which I will be posting soon. But yeah, I can't wait to read that one because this one was so good. So thank you so much again, Chad, for sending me this book. Absolutely amazing. Love, love, love. So I'm gonna put the tater tots away because I'm getting thirsty, and this little table does not hold that much on it. The tater tots are great. I'm definitely going to get rid of the bread. The kids can have the bread. I'm going to take another bite of the cauliflower. This is so good. I love cauliflower. Okay. I think the next thing we're going to eat is my salad. So I feel a little like we have a lot of carbs already. Not that I'm obsessed with what I eat. This better be Caesar. Alright. That's quite a lot. I always think like this is so much dressing. I don't think I talked about this in my haul video. I probably didn't. But last month I thought I thought I had a heart attack last month. And I went to the ER and they were telling me like, you are far too young to have a heart attack. No, you were not having a heart attack. I think you were having a panic attack. I've never had a panic attack before. I'm not an anxious person. I do get butterflies in my stomach when, you know, I'm nervous about something or I'm excited about something, but I've never had my heart feel like it did when I thought I was having a heart attack. So, it started off at like, it was 1 in the morning and my heart did a flip, like a flip-flop thing. It felt what it looks like when you see a fish flopping out of water, like trying to breathe. It felt like that, but in my heart. And my entire body went ice cold. And then, which was super strange because you feel like you are in charge of your body. You know what I mean? So when you have something that you consciously weren't expecting and you didn't push for your body to react that way, when you're not in control of the functions of your body or your emotions, it really freaks you out. And so my heart started racing really bad. And I was trying to like meditate, and I went outside for a little bit to get like some fresh air, and I was pacing a little bit. But the worry of being at home without my husband, because he was backpacking with my older son, and I was home with my youngest, and he has autism. You guys all know that already. But he doesn't know what to do if there was a serious like accident. Like, and so while I'm panicking, I'm writing instructions down because he can read. I'm writing instructions down like, if mommy is not, if you cannot wake up mommy, call 911. You're gonna turn on my phone. You're gonna hit 911, hit send, wait for someone to respond. When they answer, I want you to say, and I was like giving him step-by-step instructions. Now he was sleeping at the time, but I was in so much panic that I was literally going to die, and my child would wake up in the morning and not know what to do, that I could not function. And so finally at 4 in the morning, after being like in severe anxiety, my heart racing, I went and drove myself to the ER. And they did all the tests. They didn't find anything wrong with me. EKG, normal. X-rays of my chest, normal. All my blood work came out normal. I've been to the doctor since twice, just to make sure. I went to a cardiologist, and I got blood work done twice in August, and then once in July. And it all came back normal. So I'm assuming it was a panic attack, and I don't know how it started. But the reason why I brought all this up was I took 35 days off of eating sugar, drinking alcohol, or drinking caffeine. And this goes back to like the addiction thing that I was talking about at the beginning. I don't need those things in my life. I do enjoy them. And so it's been really nice to like look at the food that I'm eating, especially since we're, you know, opening back up. Because during COVID, I didn't care. I was just eating whatever. I was home all day long. And now I'm being more thoughtful about what I'm consuming and how much I'm consuming. And hopefully that'll keep me healthy and living as long as possible, because I don't want to die until I'm 100. Okay. Next book. This glorious one. Gory Details. This is the last book that I read in the month of May. Now, you guys might have seen this on my Instagram, because the Gory Details part glows in the dark. You might have heard me raving about this book when I got it in the mail, and I was showing you guys in a book haul. This is such a good nonfiction book. I've always been fascinated with facts, and I gave that love to my oldest son. He's obsessed with facts. And this is facts of the dark side of science. Now, when I talked about this in I know I didn't actually review this book, but I did talk about like how I was continuing reading it, how I started this back when I was doing it was in April. I started this back in April, and I was reading it for the Dewey's 24-hour readathon, and I was talking about like the different subjects in here. And I was saying how, you know, part 1 was morbid curiosity, part 2 is that's disgusting, part 3 is breaking taboos, part 4 is creepy crawlies, part 5 is gross anatomy, part 6 is mysterious minds. Now this woman, this author, Erica Engelhaupt, has been writing science articles for decades, and National Geographic asked her to write a whole book on these subjects. And so she went around and interviewed people and really got to know a lot of strange facts. Now, because this book is so dense and has so much information, it is, let me know my chalk. I just want the ending so I can tell you. Here we go. It's 302 pages long, but there's so much information in here, there's no way I could tell you everything. All I can say is that down below in every single wrap-up video I have ever done, you will always find Goodreads links to all of my written reviews. And in my written reviews, I really break down the book and allow you to see the good and the bad of whatever I'm reading. There are some very fun things that I read in here, like Blowfly's favorite food is dried semen. Why? I don't know. that when a blowfly ingests spit, blood, semen from a person, fecal matter, whatever it is, whatever they consume from a human body, that DNA is then stored in the fly. So if you kill a fly, or the fly poops somewhere, because flies poop, everybody poops, that DNA is then in the fly poop, or in that smashed fly. So if the fly takes off, leaves the house and goes somewhere else, that DNA is then spread somewhere else. So you could get, like, you could get the wrong killer because of DNA that has been spread throughout the house from a fly. I just think that's so crazy. When I was in college, I wanted to be a part of the CSI because I watched CSI Las Vegas and CSI Miami and CSI New York. This was like a huge thing in college, and I wanted to be a forensic, like, detective or forensic scientist. And this just brought out all the stuff that I love about crime, like the inside of not people killing people, but just the science of it all and how they capture criminals and everything. So fascinating. Please, if you can, pick up this book, borrow it from the library, buy it, borrow it from somebody. You have to read it. It's so good. I absolutely love. All right, that's the rest of May. That's all of May. And it took an hour for me to talk about just May's books, but I think the other books will go a lot quicker. We will see. We'll see. What's your guys' favorite salad? Do you like salads with like tons and tons of toppings, or do you like them mostly plain? Do you eat them with dressing? Do you eat it without dressing? When I was little, I couldn't eat salad without ranch dressing. And as I got older, I realized you don't really need much dressing because vegetables are good without it. Okay, on to June. In June, I finished Howls from Hell, a horror anthology by a whole bunch of authors, and a foreword by Grady Hendrix. This is a signed copy to me. I was asked to read this arc a few months back by the Howls Publishing, right? Howls Society. Howls Society contacted me and asked if I wanted to read this anthology, and I was just like, absolutely. Horror short stories by a bunch of authors that I've never heard of, yes please. I absolutely want to go and read that. And at the end of my reading, I think I gave this a 4.5 star, something like that. Most of these stories in here I absolutely loved. But at the end, right when they were when this book was supposed to be published, which I think was in June, they said to all of the people that participated in reading the arc that they could join this Zoom meeting. And at the Zoom meeting, all of the authors, or most of the authors, would read a little bit of their story, which I thought was great, because then you got to like interact with the author. And then there was going to be a giveaway at the end, and they would just randomly choose somebody from the meeting to win a book. Now, one of the things that you could win was a full novel from one of the authors, and then the other thing that you could win was a finished copy of the book that we read, and it would be signed by one of the authors and the person who kind of like put this all together. So yeah, I was so excited because I was like, please win, please win, please win. And when she called my name, I freaked out. So it says it says to Missy, a review queen. He asked me what I wanted to be called, and I jokingly said the review queen, and so he wrote that in there, which I love. Not that I don't know if I do an amazing job at reviewing books, but I really, really do love talking about books, and so it was nice to see that. So there are, let me double check, and again, like I said before, all of this is going to be down in the description box, all of the stories. So this collection has 16 stories in it, and there were a bunch that I really, really enjoyed. I'm just going to read the title and the author, and then kind of give you a snippet of what it is. But again, you'll see all this in the written review too. So there was one called The Pigeon Lied by J.W. Donnelly. Now, this is an urban fantasy story about how, like, gangs are, like, connected with demons down below. Like, the demons have come up onto Earth, and they're like the mob boss, you know, and you have these minions, these human minions that do things for these demons, and if you cross them, then you go to hell, and then you're stuck with them forever, and they like torture you. And this kid, he's just learning the ropes of being in the business of being a bad guy, right? His dad has this hat that he covets. He wants this hat. And this pigeon, who can talk, goes, I'll give you a better hat than your dad if you go and kill this guy for me. And the kid's like, yeah, I want a hat too. And so he goes and kills this guy, but then that snowballs into a whole bunch of stuff, because then the person that he kills ends up not dying, and he goes, you're in big trouble now. And the kid's like, no, I will do whatever you want. And so that person, that bad guy, goes and tells him to do something, and you just follow it, and it's so good. I love anything to do with hell and demons and urban fantasies and supernatural and paranormal. Like, all of that stuff is just my jam. So really, really enjoyed that. And then another one I really, really liked was Manufactured God by P.L. Macmillan. That one is a sci-fi horror set way, way, way in the future. And it's about some scientists that are excavating this place that used to be Egypt. And when they finally get down into, like, the tunnels of this thing, this cave that they're in, there's a huge, like, mechanical monster in there. And they see, like they see this huge board of switches and stuff, and they're like, isn't this a little advanced for this society, for this time period? And if you don't know, I'm obsessed with ancient aliens and just, you know, aliens in general, and how Egypt was created, and, like, maybe aliens were there to, like, help the Egyptians, like, create this, like, all of their technology and everything. So fascinating. I absolutely love this story. That one in particular, I really, really wanted a full-length novel on. I think that would be amazing. Let me just do one more. Which one did I like? Which one? They were all so good. I'll just go in order, because I don't want to think too much. Red Punch Buggy. I'll talk about that one. Is by Bob Jenkin. B.O.B. Jenkin. Now, In this story, it's about a man who is driving his car to work. He's already late for work, and he rear ends this guy. And he's like, oh no, I'm really going to be late for work. And he jumps out, and the guy's got blood on his forehead. And he's like, oh my God, I need to help this guy. And so he goes in, and he's like shaking the guy. Hey, are you okay? And when the guy comes to, he's pissed. He's so angry. He's like, what's wrong with you? Leave me alone. And the guy's like, I'm sorry, I hit you. And he goes, you hit me? And he's like, no. Not physically. I hit you with my car. We got into a car accident. Are you okay? And the guy's like, you're wasting my time. And he drives off. and the guy is thinking, what just happened? And so he goes to work. And he's like already upset when he gets to work because 1, he's late, 2, he got a car accident, 3, you know, the boss is, you know, bitching at him, blah, 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 blah. And the guy from the accident comes walking in to the workplace, and everybody starts freaking out. And I'm not going to tell you what happens after that because it's kind of like that movie It Follows. I think that's the title, but it's not sexual. But it goes from one person to the next, and it has to do with death. And it was really good. But I absolutely loved this anthology. If you can find this at a bookstore or on Amazon, I would definitely pick it up. Okay, back to the salad. I started eating this food a little over an hour ago, and I think what I bought was nice. I've seen mukbangs before where they just have a huge amount of food, and I wanted a variety so that way you guys would see something different each time instead of eating the same thing, because I was just gonna go to my favorite Mexican restaurant and just buy the pollo fries, which is like, stop making so much noise. Pollo fries is just nachos. Instead of on chips, it's on French fries, and the place that I go to has very good carne chicken, and I love it, love it, love it. And I was just gonna eat that, and I was thinking, 1, I don't need that many fries, and 2, that would be kind of boring and kind of gross to eat because you're eating like sour cream and guacamole and beans and chicken, and the French fries. It's all like soggy, and I didn't want to have like gross soggy mouth. I feel bad because I'm thinking, I love this food so much. What if I don't give it to my son? What if I just keep it and eat it myself later? But I did promise him, so. All right, the last thing I'm gonna have, I will probably end up going back to the cauliflower because it's so good. But I tried to get as much food as I could where it wasn't so expensive. I'm so cheap. I hate spending money on something that I can prepare myself. I normally only go out to dinner with friends, and because, you know, I don't have room at my house to cook and then have people over because my house is so small. Not bad, not bad. And so I do like to go out to dinner with friends because it's the only time I get to like see them. But I hate buying food when I can make it myself. So these are homemade chips. It says that they make it in the restaurant. And this salsa is actually pretty good. What kind of salsa do you guys like? Let me know down below. I've been binging hot ones on YouTube. I do like spicy, but there's a limit before I just like feel like I'm gonna die. And this salsa has a nice amount of spice to it. Hopefully, I'm still in the same position that I was in earlier. I did make myself a little drink. It had ice in here, and the ice is now gone. And that makes me sad. It's so hot in California. And I had my drink on my bookcase. And when I went to go reach for it, my camera fell over and landed in the salsa. So hopefully I'm still good. Okay. Don't crash. No more of that. All right. The next that I read in the month of June is Howls by Christina Lauren. Now I do own another book by Christina Lauren called Sublime, which is a love story between a human boy and a ghost girl. I bought that ages ago. I still haven't read it, but then I saw The House come out a couple years ago by Christina Lauren, and I was like, oh, I recognize the author, and oh, it's a haunted house book, so I definitely want to read it. But it sat on my shelves forever. Story of my life. And finally, Ashley and I were buddy reading the theme Haunted Houses, and this was our first pick for June to read for that theme. So this is about a girl named Delilah and a boy named Gavin. Yeah, and a boy named Gavin. Now, Delilah has been going to a private school for like 10 years maybe. She's been at a private school, and it's been mostly paid for by her grandma, who is more well off than her parents are. When the grandma is finally too old to continue like taking care of herself, and she goes into like an old folks home, the money that the grandma has accumulated is now going towards the payments of the facility. So Delilah can no longer go to this fancy like private school. She has to go back to school with all of her old friends from her neighborhood. And it's weird because like I was expecting the story to go one way, where, oh, everybody would be mean to her because she hasn't been around, they don't really remember her, but that's not the case, because Delilah always comes home for like holidays and vacations, and so she sees her friends. She just has like two different kinds of worlds. But there's one person in particular. There's a boy named Gavin, and now when right before Delilah goes to private school, there's an incident with Gavin where she has to save him from some bullies when she's like 7 years old. And she never forgets this incident, and apparently Gavin has never forgotten it either. And when you continue on with the story where Gavin and Delilah start talking, and she's like, do you remember me? And he's like, yeah, I do. And children's book series that I read to my kids called Gustav Gloom, and it's about a boy who lives in a house with a bunch of shadows, and he has no parents. He's just raised by these shadows in his house. And when I picked up this book, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting the same vibe. So Gavin lives in a haunted house. The house itself is alive. All of them have their own personalities, like the lights, the ground, the stairs, the tables, the bed, blankets. They all have their own like personalities and their own thoughts and feelings, and they've been trying to keep Gavin like alive and well, but to the house, Gavin is its possession. Am I saying that right? The house owns Gavin. Gavin isn't an individual, you know? So when Gavin is talking to Delilah again, the house gets very jealous and doesn't want Gavin to talk to her. And lots of things happen after that. Like when Delilah tries to like convince the house that she's a good person, and she's like weirded out by the fact that she has to feel this way. Like she's like, I can't believe I'm like talking to a house hoping that I don't hurt its feelings. Like I don't want to offend the house. And Gavin's like, the house has never done anything mean to me, but yeah, maybe it might be mean to you. I don't know. But Delilah lets him know. She's like, what are you going to do when you're 18? Like, don't you want to leave this town? And he's like, I never thought about it. She's like, well, what is the house going to do? And that is the snowballing effect of the house. You see how my camera will not, it just won't stay in a position that I like. My bed is very cushy, and so if it was this hard flat surface, it would be one thing, but it's not. I gave this a 3.5 stars. It was good. It wasn't my favorite, and I don't think I would reread it again. Maybe? I don't know. I think I'm going to keep it just in case, but I don't think I will probably pick it up again. But it was good. I would definitely pick it up if you're interested in haunted house stories with like a twist, because it was fun. It was fun to read, and that's the main thing, right? You always want the things that you do to be fun. Oh my god. All right, I need to figure out how to fix this stupid camera. So let's continue. We are now really far into this mukbang. All right. The next books that I read are all of the kids' books. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this drink. I had to put the drink on the ground just in case. I don't mind the chips spilling all over my bed, but I can't handle if my entire bed is covered in soaked in drink. Otherwise I'll have to do laundry. I don't want to. Alright, so I have a huge pile of books here. Now again, this is all, oh my gosh, this is all from David Elliott. Like I said before, David Elliott wrote a ton of kids books before he started writing the YA. Now, I do still want to do a spotlight for him. I do want to do a spotlight for him where I go into more detail about the books, but I'm just going to kind of show you the covers so that way you can see what I read. All right. So, I'm counting all of these because I did put reviews up for all of these books, so I didn't just read like 2-3 books in June. I read a whole bunch of kids books too. Alright, so the first one that I read was the two Tims. It's about two best friends named Tim, and then a third one comes and they're wondering if they can be friends with another kid as well. Alright, and then there is Hazelnut Alien Hunter. This was different. I did enjoy the illustrations. All of the reviews for these books are down below. These are all children's picture books. And then I read Bob Wah and Woolian. Very cute, about a couple of sheep. And then I read Nitty Kitty. It's like kind of like a rhyming scheme, rhyming book for a mom cat and her children. And then I read One Little Chicken accounting book. This one was cute. And then I read On the Farm. And the cool thing about this particular book is there's like 4 or 5 in this series. And they all have lesson plans attached to this. So if you were to look up David Elliott and then look up his picture books, these particular ones on the farm come with teachers' lesson plans. And like you can download all that stuff for free. So that way you can talk about farm animals with like little kids and have activities to do while you read the story. Yeah, I really enjoyed. And then we have, oh, and then I read Here's to You. So I'm going to leave a picture here of this book. Here's a little side rant of what happened when I was borrowing these books for this author spotlight. Not only was I able to borrow books from the county that I live in, which, you know, takes into consideration all of the libraries in the entire county, but I was also able to borrow books from like the local colleges in the area. If you borrow a book from a college and you don't pay it, don't bring it back on its due date, it's $100 fine. If I don't bring this book back on its due date, it's 10 cents a day. Can you imagine $100 a day? The book isn't even worth $100. I basically had to plead my case to the library, and thank goodness they were changing from one like program system to another, so they like waived all of my fees, but I owed like $600 for these stupid picture books. Not that David Elliott's books are stupid, just I couldn't believe it. So and Here's to You is one of the picture books that was worth $100 that I had to give back before I could do this video, but that one was also cute. And then I read 2 orc books. There is This Orc, He Number 1. It's about a cave boy and his woolly mammoth pet. Super darling. And then this other one called This Orc, He Cave Boy. There is a third one of these that I could not find at the library, which is a bummer because I kind of wanted to read that one too, but I couldn't. What else do I have? Oh, Finn Throws a Fit. This one was funny. I really liked this one because it was like talking about how a kid tantrums, but it puts it in the perspective of like a storm, an actual storm in the house. Again, I want to go through all of these more in more detail a little bit later. All right, and then On the Wing is another one of those on the something. So there's like On the Farm, On the Wing, on the like on the jungle maybe. I can't. There was a whole bunch of, oh, I have them. In the Wild. I haven't read them yet. I still have a couple on my floor. And then I had to return one because, again, $100. This one was cute. It talks about birds. And then the last one that I don't have anymore because I had to return it is Nobody's Perfect. I really liked this one too. Again, if you wanted to go into detail about those particular books, they're all down in the description box. You just have to click on the links. So that is, oh no, just jokes. I have Nobody's Perfect is right here. It's very cute. I loved the illustrations. So yeah, those were all the books that I read in the month of June. 3 main books and then a whole bunch in this whole stack of picture books I read and enjoyed. So do what you will with that information. Alright, let's put these all down so I don't break anything. I cannot wait to move out of this house, have a proper, like, office library with a table where I can film and not have to worry about things falling. That would be great. Okay, we're going into July. Now, July, I only read 3 books in July. And those books, let me get to them. The first one is Kill Creek. Now, this was my buddy read with Ashley. We're still in the haunted house genre, but this was the adult book. The adult, what am I trying to say? The adult version. Okay, so with Kill Creek, this was another book that I really enjoyed. I still haven't written a review on this one, which is really depressing because it's been months now and I kind of forgot. So we're going to read a little bit of the prologue together so I can kind of get the gist of what I was reading. It says, "No house is born bad. Most are thought of fondly, even lovingly. In the beginning, the house on Kill Creek was no exception." And I do remember that this house had been standing alone for a while, and then a family moves in. But as with most places rumored to be haunted, a tragedy befell the house on Kill Creek. The man who built it was murdered. Mere feet from the woman he loved, his outstretched hands attempted to span that mockingly short distance between them, to touch her dark skin, to caress her hair, his mind insisting that if she could just hold her, they would both be saved. They were not saved. So the house was built by a white man to have an affair with I think like a black slave. Now I can't remember how long ago the man like built the house, like if slavery was still then, it was still prevalent, or if slavery was done, like, but the people in the town just did not accept, you know, that kind of racial relationship, like, you know, biracial relationship, and so they hung the black woman while the white man watched, and, you know, as he was crying and screaming for her, then they killed him. But because of that, the house now has a life of its own, and it is constantly feeling pain and suffering. It says on the back here, it was supposed to be a simple publicity stunt. 4 famous horror authors spending the night in one of the world's most notorious haunted houses. So there's this, like, I've read a couple of books that are like this, where we have this podcast guy who does dark podcasts or does shows where he talks about hauntings and other such stuff. And he knows these 4 different authors that are legend in the horror genre. There's a very old man who has been writing forever. There is an author that is kind of like R.L. Stine, where he writes Christian horror fiction for like a younger kind of audience. And then there is a man that's not like Stephen King. I want to say like the older guy. He's really old, so he wouldn't be Stephen King. I don't know who would play him. Do you watch Trixie Mattel? Who would play him? I don't know. But there's the old man, and then there's the R.L. Stine Christian writer guy, and then the third guy is an author who doesn't have very many books out, but the books that he does have out, people really, really enjoy. And then there's like this woman who writes like torture porn, like horror books with lots of torture in it. And she's like very feminist and has a grudge against men and like really like kills people and tortures them in all of her books, and she finds that sexy. And they've all been invited to come and stay at this house, this Kill Creek house, just for 24 hours. And then what would happen is this guy that was bringing them all together would have an interview with the whole like cast, all of the people, all those authors would be there. And he would interview them, and then he would promote their next books that they were going to be writing, and then talk about how they're so good and how they are influential on the horror genre and how people should go and like buy their books. Now when they're invited to stay at this house, they get this packet filled with information about the history of the house, how people keep dying in this house. Like they'll find like they're not hobos anymore, but you know, like transient people who like kind of hang out in a particular house. Squatters. Squatters will end up dying in this house, and then like cops will come and check the house, and then they'll have to like take their bodies out or whatever. So, just like a lot of these like slasher horror movies that you watch on TV, like in the movies or whatever, something always happens to the characters, right? They're getting picked off one by one. We don't know what's happening. Just know that this book has possession in it, a killer house, horror elements. It's creepy. Lots of deaths, lots of blood and gore. I really liked this book. I think I gave it a 5-star. Maybe it was a 4-star. I gave a lot of 4 stars in the last couple of months. It was really good. It wasn't perfect, but it was really good. I definitely recommend Kill Creek if you haven't read it already. It was a lot of fun. Especially the ending. Oh my gosh. I always get knocked down with endings. I'm so oblivious when I read. I never can know what's happening, and when it does, I'm like, that's not right. All right, the next book that I read, I'll leave the pictures here, was Truly Devious, and this is by Maureen Johnson. It's a detective story that is about a college that was created by a man who was really, really rich, who wanted gifted children to go to this school for free. So, all of the best students, you know, they would have to write essays and be eligible, like they would have to compete to get into this school. And while the school was open, there was like people who wanted to harm the rich guy who made the school, and they end up kidnapping his wife and daughter, and the man tries to get them back through ransom money, and it ends up not working, and then the old man dies, and yeah, nothing comes of it. And the school is still open. It's being run by somebody else. I don't know who runs the school now, but the mystery has never been solved. They don't know who wrote those letters, like with the coded letters, like that they had to follow, like this this riddle to figure out who did it. And our main character in Truly Devious sees herself as like a Sherlock Holmes kind of person. She really likes Sherlock Holmes. She really likes detective stories. She really likes trying to figure out how things happened, where people were. And there is a death on campus while she's there, and she's trying to figure out what happened, and she's like trying to help the police. And I really, really enjoyed it, and I think so far there's 4 or 5 books in this series. I don't own any of them. I just owned Truly Devious on my Kindle, and I rarely read books on my Kindle. And yeah, so that was, I wish I would have had like a book to share with you guys, but I don't. Definitely check that out if you haven't. It took me a while to read that one. Not because it was bad, but because, again, it was on my Kindle, so I never thought about it. And then sometimes I'll find myself without a book, say, while I'm waiting for the kids when I'm trying to pick them up, or if I'm at the laundromat and I, for some reason, didn't bring a book with me, then I'll read from my Kindle. The next book that I read in July, and the last book that I read in July, I've already done a video on, so I will leave that video down below if you're interested in seeing that review. I also have my Goodreads review linked down below as well, and that was the Vanishing House by something Donahue. What was it? Rachel Donahue, and it's about a boarding school, nuns, a mystery. I always love mysteries at boarding schools. So there's this girl who goes to this boarding school run by nuns, and while she's there, she meets this girl that she becomes obsessed with. And whenever I say obsessed with somebody, I mean that in like, they want to be friends with them. They want to be around that person all the time. When you first meet a friend or a person that you're interested in, you know, as a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, you feel that way. You feel kind of obsessed with them. And our main character is obsessed with this girl named Victoria. She just finds her fascinating. She's beautiful. She's dark. She's mysterious. She says what she wants. She's not afraid. And then she also meets their art teacher. And the art teacher is like really, really young. And yeah, and so she's learning about what happened in the past and why this particular art teacher and this person disappeared. It's so good. So our main character's name is Louisa, and she is said to have run off with the art teacher. But the whole time we're reading the story, we have to figure out whether or not this actually happened. What happened? It was good. I gave this one like a 3.5, I think. Yeah, I gave it a 3.5 stars. Again, it's been months, and I don't want to reread my entire review just to figure out, because sometimes I have to read something and get triggered into memories of reading the book. Sometimes I just remember it just by looking at the cover, but sometimes I have to read a little bit of what I wrote to go, oh yeah, now, and then I know the entire book again. So check out the review down below, either the video review or the written review. On to August. August, I read a bunch of books as well. So in August, we're going to start off with Rough and Ready. Now this is by Clark Casey. He also wrote Dawn and Damnation and the Indian Wars. I really, really enjoy this author. I will leave his Instagram down below if you're interested in checking out his other books or just him in general. This was such a fun read. So it's about the California mining boom. We have these characters that are all like misfits. They all come from different walks of life, and they all are going to California to find gold and become rich and famous. And when they get there, they find out that it's like really hard to pan for gold. And our main group of people settle on this hill on Mormon territory. So these Mormons, they own the land, and they're like, dudes, you guys got to move. We're kicking you out. And they're like, but you can't, because we have our own country. And they're like, that's impossible. That's so stupid. Like, no. For reals. We have seceded from the Union. We are no longer a part of the United States. At that point in time, it was kind of like just the 13 colonies. It really didn't, it wasn't 13 colonies anymore, but don't quote me on history. I only know as much as my son learns in school because I have to help him with homework. We haven't gone across the entire country yet in his classes, so I don't know when California became a state. But it was in the talks of becoming a state, and it hadn't become one yet. So it's still kind of like free reign. So the Mormons own this particular part of the land, and these misfits have been squatting on this hill, and they claim it's their own country, and they call themselves the Rough and Readyans. That's the country, Rough and Ready. And there is a police officer and a mayor and a bunch of workers and a bunch of miners, and they're all extremely poor. And one day the police officer, like the sheriff and the mayor, both kill themselves. Not they committed suicide, but they both shoot each other and they both die. And so they have to come up with a new sheriff and a new mayor. And the town drunk decides that he wants to run for mayor, and they all agree. Or not mayor, but president. I keep saying mayor. They're a country. So he runs for president, and the vice president is a chicken, which reminded me of Moana, so I called him Hey Hey the whole time I was reading the book. And it's so funny, and I really enjoyed it, and I think I gave this one a 4 or 5 star. The written review is down below. There's one little trigger warning in this story about a Spanish man who was beat up by some like cowboys, and his wife-to-be was raped and murdered. Now, it doesn't go into detail about the rape, it just says the word rape. So if you don't want to read a book that has the word rape in it, and I think it's only, the word is only shown like twice or maybe 3 times when the Spanish guy is talking about how he wants to seek revenge because this group of bad cowboys killed his soon-to-be wife, and why he wants revenge on them. But it doesn't go into details. So I just wanted to let you guys know that the word was in there. But I really, really, really enjoyed this book. Loved it so much. I will read anything that Clark Casey writes. He's got a way with his words, and it was just so funny. It was so funny. I'm so tired. I feel like I didn't eat that much, but I'm exhausted. All right, the next book is another book that I read. This one was not on my Kindle, but this one I read for my friend in real life, and that is called Save My Heart. This is typically not the kind of book that I would read because it's a romantic thriller, and I used to read romantic thrillers back when my kids were babies, but I haven't read them in a really long time because I don't want to read about people falling in love, especially when it has to do with like a cop and a person that he's supposed to protect. Like, I just find that so like cliche. I don't like reading about it, although people really like that trope and eat it up. So my friend was like, hey, can you read my book, be like the last beta reader before it's published? And I was like, yeah, I guess. And it actually was really good. I quite enjoyed it. It's about a girl who works at a bookstore, and she's kind of a doormat. Like, her whole life, she's just been like this yes girl, you know. If someone asks her of something, she goes, okay, I'll do it, whatever, I'll do it. Even though she doesn't want to. And I feel, excuse me, I feel like I can relate to that, you know, like, not that I'm a martyr or anything, and that's exactly what her sister calls her. You're such a martyr. Like, why do you always have to, like, pick up the slack when no one asked you to? So, our main character, her her parents died in a car accident when she was little, and so she was raised by her aunts and her grandparents, and the grandparents end up dying, or they're sick, they're old now, when she's like in her early 20s, and instead of finishing school to become a teacher, she decides she's going to stay home and take care of the grandparents. And now her twin brother and sister just bail. They're like, we don't want to deal with this, we have our own lives. You want to be the caretaker, even though you can put them in a home, be my guest. And so she ends up taking care of her sick grandparents until they pass away. And now she's just kind of floating. She doesn't know what she wants to do with her life. She's kind of bitter at the fact that she like got a degree, or she was starting to get a degree, and then she never like did anything with it. And then she finds out that her aunt is dying, and her aunt lives across the country, lives in Maine, and so she decides she's going to go to Maine and move in with the aunt and take care of her. And she's like trying to get a hold of her sister who lives in France, and her brother's somewhere, who knows where. And she's like, come help me, our aunt has cancer. And the sister's like, again? You are taking care of people and no one asked you to. But while she's there, she learns more about what happened to her parents, like how they died. And before she decides, I skipped this whole part because her whole like background is kind of complicated. So she works at the bookstore when we meet her, and this cop comes and says, hey, I have information about your parents' death. Can you tell me more about what happened? What do you know what happened? And she's like, well, they died in a car accident. He's like, no, they didn't. I have the actual information. That's a lie. And now she's thinking like, oh my God, I've been lied to my whole life, and I don't want to know anything. I've pushed this aside for like 20 years. I don't care anymore. I don't want to go into any more drama. I don't want to be hurt anymore. I don't want to be sad. And during that process, when she goes back to Maine, she gets involved with a serial killer. And not in a way like they're dating or something. The serial killer knows that she exists, and then it goes from there. So if you like serial killer books like I do, definitely pick up this book. If you like cliffhangers, pick up this book. I'm so upset because now I have to wait until book 2 to figure out what happens, because it doesn't end. There's a cliffhanger, and then you have to wait to see what happens with the serial killer in book 2. I found the MO of the serial killer to be very unique, because a lot of serial killers have like a purpose on why they kill. Some are, the purpose is they're doing it for God. God chose them to do this. And so this is one of those serial killers, and he leaves like his own kind of like a prayer inside the mouths of his victims, which I've never read before, so I thought that was fascinating. So brava to my real life friend. She's the mom of my son's best friend. So my son's best friend's mom is a bona fide? Is that how you say it? She's a real author, and I love that because I can talk to her about books, and she's one of those like real life people that are like, yeah, let's talk about books. Let's talk all about books, the insides and outsides and everything in between. I love that about her. And great story. Definitely pick it up. All right, the next book that I read was, I needed to mix it up. I read Stay Hungry by Sebastian Maniscalco. I only have 18 more minutes on my memory card, so hopefully I can do this quickly. This is a comedian, Italian comedian, that has been on Netflix and Amazon Prime for a while now. He's so funny. You know what I love about comedian memoirs or celebrity memoirs is just the way they got started. Now, Sebastian comes from an Italian family, mom, dad, sister, him, and they've always been, you know, everything was always around food and telling jokes, and he decided, you know, early that he was going to go to LA and become a comedian, a stand-up comic. But it took him a long time, and I always hear those stories with celebrities where they were like auditioning for movie roles and you know, weren't getting it, or you know, they went to acting school and they never got it. And Sebastian worked his tail off as a cocktail waitress. I don't know why he says cocktail waitress, but he was like a cocktail waiter at this hotel down in LA, and he worked there for like 15 years while he was trying to make it big in the comedy world. And what I really liked is that a lot of the people that influenced him throughout the years, I know, not personally, but I am a huge connoisseur of comedians. My dad loves comedians. Growing up, he was always watching stand-up comedy either on HBO or on the Comedy Central. I tend to like more observational, sarcastic kind of comedy. You know, like the Eddie Murphy, the Richard Pryor, the oh, what's his name? You know, Bad Boys. Not Will Smith, but the other guy. I don't like when they talk a lot about sex in comedy, when they're talking about like positions and how they want to do it, regardless if you're a boy or a girl. I think it's vulgar, and I'm so prude when it comes to like sexuality. I don't want to hear about how other people do it, or how they do it, or who they want to do it with. It always grosses me out, and I know that that's just my personal, you know, flaw. I should be open to other people doing whatever they want, but I'm just like, ooh, don't tell me. That's private business. I don't care. So I like watching comedians that don't have that kind of humor. I don't mind cussing because I, you know, have a sailor potty mouth as well. So the cussing is fine, but just keep out the nighttime bits. I don't want to see that. And he doesn't talk like that. He does a lot of jokes on his observations and things that drive him crazy. I can relate to being frustrated or having pet peeves, and he's so funny. I have seen almost all of his specials. There's one that his very first one I have not seen, and I don't think that it's on either Netflix or Prime, but if they ever do put it up, I will definitely watch it. Lots of fun. I really enjoyed that his transitions, like his chapter headings, had to do with food, and the fact that it comes with pictures. So there's his mom and his dad and his little sister. Look at, I love that he was so like polite when he was starting out. Like, he would send out his headshots to these different like comedy clubs, and like he would give them a letter like, please, you know, let me come and perform for you. And then if they did, he would send thank you cards. He has a whole bit in here about tipping, how to tip people that are, you know, in the serving industry, bellboys or waiters and waitresses, or people who drive you somewhere. I swear, living in a valley stinks. You just echo of all car stuff. Really, really enjoyed it. Definitely pick it up if you haven't. The next book that I read was another book by David Elliott called The Transmogrification of Roscoe. Wizzle. I had to return this as well, another $100 book. This is about a boy who, it's kind of like a Kafka. It's almost like a metamorphosis kind of tale, and it's about a boy who is slowly starting to turn into a bug. And there's other kids in town that are also starting to turn into bugs, and you have to figure out why they're turning into bugs. Not only that, but they also have a new restaurant that opens up in town, and maybe the restaurant has something to do with it. You don't know. It was a very cute story. I loved it. And then I read, oh, where is it at? Love Bunnies from Outer Space. Love Bunnies from Outer Space is about a boy who wakes up with like this alien carrot spaceship, and these two bunnies come out and they say, you need to save the world from the terrible bunnies. And it was very cute. There's another one, another book to this series, like it's like a duology, I guess, but again, my library didn't have it. And I was kind of bummed that it wasn't in color, but it was very cute nonetheless, and I enjoyed it. And then I read, oh, the cool crazy crickets to rescue. The cool and crazy crickets to the rescue. Again, another book that I had to borrow was $100, blah blah, to return it. It's about a group of kids who have to save the day. There's a cat that's really nasty, and their dog is always trying to figure out how to keep the cat away from the group of kids. And they go about their little business, and it was very cute. All right, I'm down to 10 minutes. And then I read the Mammoth book of haunted house stories. I thought I had put a post-it note in here, but I did not. If you sent this to me during a trade away, let me know down below so I can put your name on a sticky note so I can always remember you. I enjoyed this so much. It took ages. This is like 550 pages of haunted house stories. And what I liked about this is the fact that it's stories that I've never heard of before, from authors that I've never heard of before, but they're all like very old, classic haunted house stories. Now, when I first picked this up, I thought it was like real haunted houses, you know? And people can say, well, ghosts aren't real, so you can't have a real haunted house. But I was looking for a nonfiction about houses that have been said to be haunted. And I thought that this is what that book was, but it's actually a short story collection of haunted house stories. There is haunted places, avenging spirits, shadowy corners, phantom lovers, little terrors, psychic phenomena. And then Ashley had a newer edition that was printed in 2000, and so she had a 7th, right? She had a 7th part to this that had Stephen King in it. And I was like, hey, I didn't have that. I didn't get to read that. I'm super bummed. But it was really cool. There's all these like haunted house stories. And again, this was so long. There was like 35 stories in here. My Goodreads review on this entire book is going to be way better than what I can say here in this review because it is such a long book. But definitely check that out. If you want to read haunted house stories from like the late 1800s to the early 1900s, all the way to like 1970. I think that's the highest, like the most present day story that's in this book is like 80s, 70s or 80s. But the rest are like in the early 1900s, the late 1800s. You get to see the difference in what they thought was scary. Their wordings are different. I just really enjoyed reading this, and I think that I know that we have books that we have to read in school, like Catcher in the Rye or Animal Farm. They have these like literary stories that have morals in it that kids are supposed to read and then dissect, and that's fine and dandy, but I think they should bring up fun stories as well. Like, you know how we go about reading in like a readathon, and there's like prompts that we follow, like, read a book with blue on the cover. I feel like an English class that had like a readathon like that would just do better. If they had, like, pick a book that interests you that was published in the late 1800s. I feel like you could still get a sense of the way authors spoke and what they were trying to show us, the readers, like, tell us. And you could still dissect each book. I mean, each child in the class could have like a day or so where they talk about the book, and then the whole class discusses what they read and how that is different from modern day history or science or whatever, you know, contemporary. Like, I think that would be really fun. I really enjoyed this. And then I have 2 more stories, or 2 more books that I have to talk about. You're Doing Great by Tom Papa. I was reading this last week when I got stuck at home. I got a phone call on my way to work saying that I had a close contact with someone at the school who tested positive for COVID. And I'm fully vaccinated now, but at the time I had only had my 1 shot, but I was supposed to get my 2nd shot in a few days from when I got the call. And I went that day and I got tested, and it came back negative. So I had a negative COVID test. I was going to be fully vaccinated in like 3 days from when I got the call, but I still had to be quarantined for 14 days. Which is not conducive at this moment in time, since so many teachers and students are going home because of these close contact stuff, and like no one's getting taught anything. Like, they're so short-staffed at the schools, and I felt bad, but I was nervous that before I got the info from my COVID test, I was nervous that I might have COVID. And so this helped me through that day. I think it took me 2 days to read this. It was so funny. Tom Papa is another Italian comedian who talks about food and family. He's observational, and he says things that, you know, drive him crazy, and I adore him. He has another book. This is his 2nd book. His first book is My Dad Stole Your Rake. I think that's the title of it. I definitely want to pick up that one next. But this is the 2nd one. And it's funny because in here he goes, oh, here's a story, but I'm not going to talk about it. Go read my first book. It's in that book. So now I have to read that book. Even I own it, but I should have read that one first. Anyways, that just makes perfect sense. You're doing great. He was telling me, I'm fine. I don't have COVID. I'm fine. And then I watched his stand-up comedy shows on Netflix and Amazon as well. I've seen his shows a lot. They're just like comfort. It's comforting to watch the same comedians and their same jokes over and over again. I don't know if you feel the same way, but that's how I feel. All right, I got 4 more minutes. The last one I want to talk about super quick is a short story called Alice, what is it? Alice the Assassin. It's a part of the Malice, the Malice stories. It's a retelling, Alice in Wonderland retelling. I got them for free. I will leave the link down below if you're interested in getting this book for free as well on Amazon. It's for the Kindle. You can get the prequel and the entire trilogy for free on the Kindle right now. And it's a dark tale of Alice in Wonderland. She's 13, so it's not like adult. It's like YA. But she's been stuck in Wonderland since she was 7, and all the Wonderland creatures torture her. And it's about how she ends up with a twin, an evil twin, who tries to kill her. And I loved it. Anyways, that's it. I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me during my mukbang. I'm sorry I stopped eating. I have so much food to continue eating and then feeding my children. But it is now almost 3, and I started this at like 12:30. And I said I was going to have this edited and uploaded by 4, and that's not going to happen. So I have a lot of work to do. Thank you so much again for sticking with me if you did throughout this entire video. It was long. Let me know down below what books you enjoyed, what books you think that you might pick up from this huge wrap up, and yeah, what kind of mukbang video would you like to see next? Because I think it was okay. I don't know. This is only my second time doing it, so let me know what you think. Did I do it correctly? Isn't that what most people do? They just talk and then eat, and I feel like that's what I did. Yeah, so thank you again so much for watching. Thank you for being with me, and I will talk to you soon.